Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much indeed for joining us on this in the United Kingdom. Wonderful sunny evening, but not quite as hot as Montreal. Um, Today's idea for adolescent and child coaching was to discuss some confidentialities because it can be a tripwire, it can be a hazard. And it's very, very difficult sometimes to determine exactly what one should be doing when it comes to being confidential. And I've set this up as an open forum because, apart from anything else, I don't want to witter on and bore everybody to tears when I'm hoping that various members who are turning up will have some ideas of their own, some points for discussion, perhaps some scenarios where confidentiality has been a key factor as to how to go forward. So just to start the ball rolling, the one difficult thing we have with when we're working with adolescents, when we're working with children, is it is very, very rare that they have decided to come to coaches themselves. And very often it is through perhaps encouragement, perhaps direction from somebody else who believes they have a responsibility. Now, this could be a parent, it could be a teacher, it could be an informed family member. It doesn't really matter, but often you get the impression that they want to know what's going on. They want to know how to help. And the difficulty then is to determine quite where to draw the boundary between what you tell the other interested parties and what you keep to yourselves. Or are there other ways of getting the information across? Other aspects that one can come across are, do you actually believe your client? Is there something that's actually saying, are they telling the truth? And perhaps you want confirmation. How do you go about getting confirmation? If indeed confirmation is what's required. So it can be quite a minefield. And so I thought, well, let's get everybody together and see what ideas they can come up with. So with that in mind, would anybody like to take the floor? Mark.
I have a question. I guess what I want to know is it's a very interesting topic. It's ultra timely for a variety of reasons, I think. But why is it coming forth? Why is Noble Manhattan saying at this point, "Hey, let's have a workshop on this"? Is it because it's becoming a more and more of a topic and more present and relevant, or is it simply because it's part of a body of work that Noble Manhattan looks at on an annual basis?
Okay, good question. Very good question, actually. Why coaching confidentialities? Um, Mainly because I decided to have a webinar on coaching confidentialities. That's realistically what it's all about. The reason is that in our adolescent and child coaching program, we do discuss the confidentialities aspect and how it differs when working with adolescents and children um, than when it does working with adults. And as I said, that very often you find a third party involvement, and it's quite how much they are involved, how much they want to be involved, and they could actually be paying the bill, which makes them feel that they should be involved.
Right.
And that's really why I personally bring this topic up. It's not that Noble Manhattan has directed it. I work in this area for Noble Manhattan, which is why we have these monthly meetings. But the topics themselves are either suggested to me by other people, or or I just decide myself. I've been working with the adolescent and child coaching program since its inception in 2016. So in a way, I have a vested interest. In a way, I have some knowledge, but this is an international group, and my focus is the United Kingdom. So are the differences between each country? What rules and regulations are there, if any, about confidentialities within coaching, and particularly when we're talking about children and young people? Does that answer your question?
Well, it does, but it begs another question.
Okay.
And the other question that it begs, I'm just going to close the door here because I have people coming in. The other question that it begs is if coaching is in fact a safe space where, as the coach, we come into the instance of the experience with the mindset of, encouraging and enabling the thought process, a thinking partnership, a goal of enabling the person to get to the place where they're thinking for themselves, but they've reached a level of thinking that enables them to get to another level. That's coaching in essence. There's a variety of different ways to explain it. And it's a confidential space, and we're supposed to, walk away from that experience, essentially trusting that the person that we've been the facilitator for or the coach for has the wherewithal to be able to move forward and will it forward to take their thinking and act upon it. So given that, and I have no experience with adolescent coaching, but given that we are not supposed to return to their bosses and say, hey, this or that or the other thing, wouldn't those same rules of engagement apply for an adolescent? Or does coaching have different rules and regulations for adolescents than it does for professionals, in their work life?
Okay. Mark, you mentioned bosses and things like that. Can I ask what area of coaching is your forte?
So I'm relatively new to coaching. However, I've worked with teens for the past 35 years. And the coaching that the training that I'm experiencing is setting rules and has frameworks that are fairly strict, particularly as it revolves around divulging any information to anybody under any circumstances, which boils right down to that element of confidentiality, which is the point of this meeting. So if you have an adolescent, you're breaching coaching rules and regulations if you divulge any information to anybody, essentially, from what I understand.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that point of view. Has anybody else got any views on that? Rather than sort of having an Ian and Mark show, let's open it up to the floor and hear from other people, please. Very good.
I'll speak up. So Mark, I'm also curious because I work with children. And so you've been working with teens, which are adolescents, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have found in my work that I don't overstep any boundary that is laid with the kid that I'm working with. And I talk to them about it openly. Like, do you want me to talk to your parents about this? Do you want me to talk to your teacher? Do you want me to talk to whoever is in charge of them? So that's kind of how I do it, is I build that trust and the boundaries with the kids.
Nice.
I help them map it out with me. Does that make sense? I don't try, because, okay, so I'm a millennial and I was reared by 3 different generations. And so my great grandparents were my primary caretakers, which is amazing because I got to see, sorry, my dog's coming over. She's getting excited. I got to see and I'm in America. Are you in America?
I'm in Montreal. So in Canada.
Okay,
yes.
So Canada. Okay, so I've found that there's a richness in the intergenerational understandings of the cultures that we've all grown up in. And kids nowadays are completely different. I I can't understand sometimes. And I'm close to their generation, you know, like there's just a huge gap because of technology. And I, what I've noticed, and I don't want to generalize like around the world with kids. So everyone, please tell me if this is true for you. I've noticed that there's a lot of peer to peer, like within the kids. They are like not seeking help from adults. Like they just want to stay within their peer groups, and anything that anybody says who's older than them is like, psh, you don't even know. So that's something interesting that I've been finding working with kids. So I don't know if anybody else is finding that, but that's a little bit of a tangent. So.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just writing to Tricia to see if we can get her to sort out
I've
a
sorted
few
it.
issues. Yeah. Oh, are you with
I've
us, Tricia?
sorted it. Yeah, I've got it. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes. I think it's
Okay.
I hadn't clicked OK to the recording.
Oh,
so
right.
that
Okay.
blocked everything. Didn't
Good.
realize.
Well,
Sorry.
lovely to hear you, Tricia. And after you, we'll get Christina on.
Okay. I've coached for Yes Futures, which is a charity coaching young children in groups and individuals, sort of 11 to 13. It's on a volunteer basis. And the contract with them is that it is confidential, with the exception of any conversations regarding self-harm or harming others. And that seems to have worked quite well. But within that, if other things have come up, there has been the same conversation. This seems, you know, we might be able to help, but we need to talk to X or Y or Z. Is this all right with you? So slightly different to regular coaching, but it's not breaking the confidentiality, because the contracting in the first place covers that little bit that is very, very necessary. And that's usually in a contract anyway, but just making it extra sure. I'll give you an example. I was coaching a 13-year-old who kept fiddling with her shirt cuff. And as I got to know her more, this got higher and higher, and I could see scratches on her arm. And because she kept fiddling, going through my head is she, does she want me to notice, or is she just sort of scratching? So I had my sort of internal, so I thought, oh, I've got to say something. So I said, I can't help but notice. So she told me then, it all came out that she was self-harming. So then I had the thought of, well, what would you like to do about it? Who knows? Have you spoken to anybody? So we had that conversation, but very much on what she would like to do. And fortunately, she did want to do something about it and use me as a vehicle to talk to somebody else. I still, to this day, and this was a few years ago, don't know what I would have done if she said, I don't want to do anything about it.
Thanks very much indeed for that, Tricia. That's a very, very valid point. And thank you for bringing out a story. It's really helpful. Christina.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm doing, I don't know if it's a type of coaching. I'm doing mostly journaling with teenagers and visual journaling with children. So there are two different situations, and and it's about this confidentiality in both cases. But still, I think when it's face to face, so the visual journaling with 11 years old, so then it's sometimes they just don't want their parents to see their drawings. or to see. So it's a combination of words with drawings. So they say, you know, I don't want my mom to see this one, or I don't want to, I just want you to keep it, for example, I don't want to take it at home. So that was at the beginning quite, I chose to respect this, you know, at the beginning, but I mean, like with each session, I'm encouraging the children to share with their parents what we do in the session and what is the output of the session and what did they learn about it, and if they had any feelings that, you know, they were I don't know, uncomfortable with, to share them with the parents. It's also there is a risk there, because sometimes parents, they just react in very different ways, and the children, they can close themselves. So there is a risk. On the other hand, luckily in the case of drawings, only the person who's drawing knows the best. So even if the parent will try to understand the drawing, at the end of the day, the children is owning it, and it's just the only one understanding. So there is a safe, let's say, safe place. With the online journaling, it's different, because you cannot talk with the parents in any case, but you can. Sometimes kids, teenagers, they share what they write. Sometimes they don't, but they are sharing the reflection. So you can understand if there is a problem there, a significant problem. So you can then the organizer of the group, you can just signalize to them. But it can be much more than this that you cannot see. So I'm very much in the subject of this one too. I don't know what's the right attitude. I think it's very very difficult in a way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina. That's again lovely to hear. Lovely to hear that. Nadia, she has posted about if the parents are paying the coaching bill, don't they deserve to know what their kid is being coached on? Now, that's a very interesting topic, and this is perhaps one of the difficulties, because the parent may have decided that the child needs coaching, or has come to coaching because for whatever reason. And it may be about what the parent thinks is perhaps one particular topic, but with the immediate development of rapport, which I know all good coaches are absolutely brilliant with, otherwise they'll lose adolescence in about 30 seconds flat, the topic could change.
Mm-hmm.
Could change quite considerably, as hopefully the client, you know, the young child opens up. And so this is another aspect of, you know, what to do in those sort of situations.
Mm-hmm.
In the United Kingdom, we have two main areas where confidentiality is required to be broken. One is called prevent, and that is if there is anything that is terrorist related comes up, and any coach has the authority to go to the appropriate authorities about that, and that should be part of any contract. Now, the other one is if somebody, whether it be the client or somebody else, is in danger of being harmed. And that in itself can be a very wide-ranging aspect of what is the definition of harm. Is it psychological? Is it physical? And the client's idea of harm may be different to the coach's.
Yep.
And so therefore it gets actually quite messy. And I'm going back really now to what the first question that Mark asked when we started was, why this topic? And I think already we're beginning to discover that actually there is a lot of contention, perhaps, as to exactly what a coach should be doing.
Mhm.
Before I go on any further, I see that Anne's having problems in Kenya with trying to stay online. I see that you have 2 accounts open, Anne, with us, so hopefully one of them will keep going. But has anybody else got any ideas, any thoughts that they wish to produce at this stage? Mark, come back to us.
Yeah, I just want to share with you a super simple, super subjective experience I had recently. So my coaching life is relatively new. My professional life is relatively vintage. I'm an older dad. I have 4 teens almost. So a 9, a 12 and a half, a 14, and a 16. And my 14-year-old Calder, he was going through something, and my niece, who's 23, the two of them had a very, very deep conversation. And 2 days ago, after this deep conversation, my wife and I had a follow-on conversation, and it was, what do you do with the circumstance that we have? So essentially, in this circumstance, Haley's the coach, Calder is the coachee. He has what he needs in order to move forward. And I, as the parent, while I'm absolutely interested and engaged, I have to decide what's best for the circumstance. And my decision surrounding what was best for the circumstance is I have to trust Haley and Calder, because ultimately what I want as a parent is for my child to develop a sense of confidence in those around them, and that when I trust them, I truly trust them. And that sort of fits into this conversation because, as a parent who is seeing, not a professional coach per se, but a circumstance that is like a coach-coachee circumstance, the decision that the parent has to make at that point. So that sort of ties into that. If a parent is paying for it, shouldn't the parent have the right to know? And, at a certain point, I think when the coach contracts with the parent, the coach has to do a little work around, what's the circumstance? Not what's the topic, but what's the circumstance? Do you trust your child? Do you not trust your child? Is this set of circumstances really a coaching circumstance, or is it a therapy circumstance, or is it a consultant circumstance? So anyway, I'm just going blah, blah, but these are the types of things that pop into my head as, I'm looking straight in the barrel of exactly this type of situation where, the coach, the coachee. Sorry, I go on too much. Forgive me.
No, you don't go on too much at all, Mark. And thank you very much indeed for bringing that situation to the group. As you know, we're not here to judge. We're not here to condemn. But I must also say that we're here to maintain a modicum of confidentiality and support where support may or may not be required. Interesting the way that you've decided to handle that. Situations may be different, but obviously you have trust in your niece as well as having trust in Calder, which perhaps is a wonderful place to be. Could I ask how difficult you found that decision to make?
Well, interestingly, I didn't find the decision all that difficult. What was difficult more than anything else as a parent was I know the child well, and I think that I can add some color, some support, some advice. So there's a desire there to participate for sure. However, at the end of the day, at 14 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old, we really do need to be encouraging them to evolve of their own volition, and refrain from jumping in and getting all over it. So I went with I went with part 2.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I would like to think that I would do just the same. I have to say, because I have 2 teens, slightly older than yours. I have 2 senior children as well who have teenagers of their own, and it is a tremendous challenge, and it's that horrible feeling of do I step in, do I stay out? How much can I refrain from being a helicopter parent, perhaps? And the idea of They've got to make their own way in life, absolutely, and it's difficult to know exactly when. One way that has been put across to me about sorting the confidentiality aspect out is if you feel that there is a real need, and it needn't be the parent, it may be a teacher, it may be somebody else who is involved in the contract in one way or another. If you feel that they need to know what's going on, if you feel that somebody else needs to know what's going on, somebody else in authority perhaps, then one of the ways that I've come across was to encourage the teen or the child to do the talking.
Exactly. Yes.
And if you can encourage them to open up their conversation,
yeah,
then that perhaps is the best, a good solution. Now, of course, they might be frightened to do that. And again, another way around that is to encourage them to say, look, I will be there with you to give you that support. But if you can do it yourself, it will be so much better. It may be difficult, but everybody is going to learn, including you. What do others think about that sort of idea? Christina.
So because I'm doing the journaling piece, I usually ask them to journal the conversation, how it would look like. So because you mentioned they are threatened of doing it. So then we first put it on paper. So what do you think they will answer, your parents? What do you think what's the questions? What is that you want to say? So then the moment they see it on paper, it becomes a bit more real than just in their thoughts. So, and the reflection usually, because we do the reflection afterwards, is like, actually, I think my mom will have a positive answer to that, or will encourage me, or will support me. So that's an interesting way how they get it first out of their mind, and then they just make friends with the conversation and with the situation. So that helps.
Great. That's a lovely way of putting it, Christina. Anybody else who got any thoughts on this one, please? Come on, you know you want to. Okay. So confidentiality is actually a big issue, and the other aspect really is how can you protect yourself from confidential breaches, perhaps, or being in the I won't say the wrong place at the wrong time, but how can you manage a confidential aspect, particularly if it falls as it can within the UK, that someone is likely to be harmed if that information does not get out? Somebody on that one? Anne, I see you've now joined us. Have you got any ideas from Kenya?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you. What I would think, if the confidentiality has to be opened, particularly where one may be contemplating suicide, we have to open up and share with those who can rescue the situation. Because in a coaching setup, you get different challenges affecting the teenagers. Now, when you get that the teenagers' issue requires one who has expertise that you may not be having, or you as the parent, you feel you need support. Support as a parent and also support to the child, the teenage child. Then at that time, you need to share the issue at hand and see how the situation can get arrested. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed for that, Anne. Again, it is one of those situations, isn't it? It's in a way, it's lovely to hear there's a multinational agreement, because of course, if we are all coming from different countries and we have different concepts, we have different cultures, and there may be some cultures who almost insist on the adults knowing what's happening with the children, and this can be incredibly difficult for a coach, because if there is a confidentiality conflict, then is the client in the right sort of space to give the truthful answers, or are they going to hide something? Like as was said earlier about the situation of cutting and self-harming. Do they want? Is the child saying, I want you to know that there's something up here, or is it just a natural reaction? And it can be very, very difficult. And one thing that also does come up is how truthful is the child in a particular case? Who are they serving? Are they telling you one thing, yet meaning another? And this is really where really focused quality coaching comes into effect, because especially if it's on Zoom or something like that, which can be, is the coach getting the full story? Are you reading, the depth of listening, that what you are hearing is not what is being said? And that can be hugely difficult. And sometimes it's a case of, I'm not too sure what's going on here. Where do I go and find out what is going on? Or can you really find out from the child, and particularly the younger children? It's very, very difficult. Sure, they can be open and honest and truthful because they know no different. But they can also be in a situation of covering up through embarrassment, through threats, through anything like that. And it can be very, very difficult for somebody who is involved on somebody else's behalf to get in there to find out really what's going on. And does somebody who's paying you to look after their child really want to know that they are probably the cause? And if that's the case, what do you do about it? Do you consider, and this is one of the options, do you consider actually saying to the parent, let's have some coaching? Let's, and so you can hear perhaps the story perhaps from a different angle, which may or may not help. But of course, that's going to take confidence from the family rather than just one particular person. I mean, I've had a situation where a parent has come to me saying, I'm worried about my child. And it became very apparent very quickly the child was absolutely fine. The parent was actually the cause. Fortunately, it was one of those situations which could easily be unscrambled, but there are deeper ones. And that is what I find so challenging about the confidentiality question, is what can you do to protect yourself? What can you do to protect your client? Who is more important, the client or the person who's paying for the client? And that gets difficult. One of the ways of getting around it is to have a sort of a tripartite contract, perhaps, where you actually have a contract with the parent and with the child, or even perhaps two different contracts, to say, look, this is what's going to happen, and this is what's going to happen. But they should know where the boundaries are. And the boundaries are actually incredibly important. In every situation, they are different. If anybody's got any ideas, any case studies, any situations like that, then I'd love to hear them, because I think it's quite important to help people to develop their experience in dealing with situations like this. Coaching adults, coaching children is not brand new, but it is brand new in the same way, because it is different from coaching adults. Mark, please take yourself off mute.
Yes, I was just hitting the safe note. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to give everybody's a chance to express themselves, and to wait until this moment, to touch upon some I dare to say different things, having worked with the children and adults over 10 plus years, teaching them and coaching them differently. And as you said, we're talking about safety and credibility and trust, which is hugely important to, and I have to say that, I would say that not many people know, with all due respect, not many people know what actually coaching kids is exactly. And of course, I'm touching upon some familiar places where coaching is questionable, as in what that is exactly. And so one of the things I would point out that character is very, very, very important when it comes to concern and background and who is coach and who is coachee. Relating to the part of the story when you're conversing about who is more important, kids who is being coached, or elderly or adult who is paying. That's like a really, really, really tricky ground, because you have to come from the point where all is understandable, and sense of understanding gets to a higher ground. Now, what I mean by that is that it's very interesting for me. Over the years, I've seen kids, adults, many different backgrounds and walks of life, and one of the greatest things in that respect is what builds their character. Now, mind you, this is a very, very important part of credibility and who they are, as in what influenced them when we're talking about credibility and trust and who they become as people, because everybody's different, okay? And if you come from a position of being concerned all the time, that is alerting, because that's justified, because everybody understands in their own way, and so building a character in this way is greatly important, because when we're talking about younger people, and kids, and if you're an adult, especially a parent, you get to be, if you're allowed to be, you get to be a part of their life each and every second of their life. Now, that's not easy, because child is going through each and every, like, everything. So one moment can be dark, the very next can be light, and that can change and shifts. And so influence that, and I'm talking about influencing in the most powerful, positive way, is greatly important when it comes to a child. I'm not talking about like any age. I'm just reflecting on child being as a child. I'm talking about their characters, because in nowadays, in all this technology and all this access to everything, things they know can be quite confusing, as in how they act. So I have to say that I'm not a parent. I have a brother who's a parent, and he has a 11-year-old kid and 4-year-old daughter, and they are growing up to be beautiful people, and they have beautiful friends and all that. But when I see the contents and how people react to it, and all the influence coming from outside, that character buildup is hugely important, because if that goes and takes its own direction, as it should be, everything else is just a noise. I'm not sure if you get what I mean. So that credibility and that character buildup, that's when coach comes in. Is something, well, and second, they if they trust the process, if they let you in, that's sort of the language I use, like if they let you in, because if sometimes they don't do that from the first point. From you have to earn that. It's like trust, right? So once they do that, if they let you in, they can be comfortable with you, and once they're comfortable, and that's what you're aiming for. Once they're comfortable, I mean, there's it's a beautiful world. So I tend to look at that from the positive side, because there's so much negativity, there's so much denial, so much they call it a cancel generation for whatever reason. I don't get it, but that's why I strongly believe in that character buildup, because if you have that, that can branchify into many different aspects. And so I strongly believe in that positive affirmation, because influence and choose for that influence is greatly important. If you maintain that, if you continue with that, and you can have that in many different ways, I think that is a very good muscle buildup for whatever comes as a challenge. Thank you.
Mark, thank you so much indeed for that. It's always lovely to hear sort of others' views. I almost prefer them, and certainly prefer them than my own. That's certainly for sure. Nigel comes back saying, is coaching kids actually building character for them? It could be, couldn't it? Is it actually, as a coach, are you actually supporting their life skills development? Which comes on to a very interesting situation. Tricia, the client is more important. Say more.
Yeah, someone asked that, or you asked that, didn't you? Is it the client? Is it the person who pays? And for me, the client is always is the most important. And I think go back to the contract, because in a way it's like if you're coaching in a corporate situation where the business is paying for one of their members of staff to have coaching, and having a 3-part contract where I would not agree to relay what happens in the coaching session to the business, and if they're not happy with that, then they're not going to employ me. It's as simple as that, because that really is breaking the contract. But if the client said, yeah, feed this back in a way that is, not threatening, not confrontational, blah, 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 but back to children or young people, for me, it's about making the connection. And if the connection is good, and you can really be very, very patient and take time, in my limited experience, the young people I've worked with have opened up and have started talking. And sometimes they're saying, yeah, actually, I should speak to my teacher or my mum, my dad, my whoever about this at some point, without me trying to prod, persuade, or whatever, through letting them speak, and them, the feeling they've had of being heard. And what a great feeling that is with someone who's not judging. Then often they are coming to the conclusion. For me, I think, well, yeah, self-coaching, my work is done. It's okay to talk and be patient and allow people to hear you. Sorry, I won't waffle on, but did that make sense?
Perfect sense. Perfect sense, Tricia. Thank you very much indeed. To a certain extent, yeah, what you're saying here is it's all about the contract. And going back to if you can encourage the clients to take the bull by the horns, as we say, to actually go and talk to somebody, then what a wonderful feeling that is, because you think, actually, not only have I actually got there, but they're learning as well, and things like that. Mark, I did like your idea of if they will let you in. I think that's a lovely way of saying how to develop a rapport, because particularly if they are not too sure about why they are with you, it's having to not only develop the rapport but explain, what the benefits are going forward. Peregrina, you've patiently raised your hand, and then we'll come back to you, Mark.
This is going to be like a circle. This is how I like see the world, is like concentric circles that all kind of just weave in and out of each other. So going back to what Mark was saying, and then also Trisha, and then Christina, it's like Christina said that coaching is transformational, and then what Trisha was just saying was kind of like, we create a container that makes it safe for the child or whoever we're coaching to enter into a relationship with us. And then the whole, like, is it more important to have the client's discretion, or do we tell the parents? Going back to what Mark was saying, like, I also believe that, like, all realities, all things that everybody is doing or saying or acting out is true to them. And it is, like, not necessarily right in a way where it's affecting the whole in a negative way. But if we can, like, to me, it's the contracts that you enter into the relationship with, right? Like, enter into a contract with the parent and the child and everything. I actually had something happen with a client and then her parent, where she was self-harming, and I was the only adult in her life that could support her through that. And I think it was just too much for her parents to try to break down whatever they thought from, like, their generational stuff or their own personal stuff that they had going on. And so I was able to support her through that. And then she eventually did stop self-harming, because there were just, it just happens sometimes. But we were able to, like, heal through that. But that's also something that made me go deeper into psychology, I guess. And I mean, I'm not a psychologist, I'm a coach, right? And something that I have found, I'm in the creativity coaching program through Noble Manhattan. And to me, that's like, creativity is the center of every living being, is creation, right? And so I've taken that, and I do, like, I coach people through, like, plant medicine and like foraging and, I guess, grounding and knowing who we are as a species, not just in relation to other people, but to the earth as well. So that it's kind of like reorienting, like, it's a paradigm shift, right? Which it seems silly. It is, though. That's the reality of kids these days, is everybody's been on a screen. And so to take kids and bring them out into nature and just, like, move through things has been really healing. And then I started to realize that, like, there's more going on than we realize, which, of course, everybody who thinks about that, right? So I just started to, like, become more curious, and I found that through the course that I'm in, my instructor talks about, like, us as artists having, there's, like, your whole self, and then there's your artist self, and then there's, like, all these different selves. And something that I found interesting in the field of psychology is there's internal family systems therapy. I don't know if people are familiar with this, but it's basically like treating your mind as an ecosystem rather than a single mind. So you're not like black and white, good and bad. You're like, okay, I have all of these different parts, and this part of me is showing up right now. And this part has all these other parts that show up when that part shows up. And so when I started to use that language and that mind mapping with clients and then their parents, I found that when parents were hurting their kids or were through, they didn't know it, they didn't mean to, it was easier to be like, hey, so here's this thing that's going on, and it's just this thing. It depersonalized it, you know, rather than being like, you're doing this and it's hurting your child and your relationship and blah blah blah. So it took all of like the shame and blame away from it, which in the Western world is a huge thing that we deal with. And so taking that away and giving power to people to be like, oh, like this is just this part and it needs this other thing. So it kind of has invited curiosity into like, yes, the both of their relationships, but then their relationship with themselves too, which I found is really enriching. So yeah, that's all I've got for that.
Great, thanks very much indeed for that, Peregrina. So it's a good way of actually attracting more clients, because you start working with a teen or with a child, and you then continue working with the parents. Cool, excellent. Mark.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and I would like to just you know, take over shortly what the Peregrina has said. She's very expressive, and I love that. And she has a very, very good points of view, as in what she does with creative coaching. So congratulations. And also, yeah, just another point. I feel drawn to make some kind of a parallel between what is said before about the sake of kids, as they've been a coachee, and you know, I hope I won't sound plastic right now to say like whoever's paying for the coaching, because you know, I got the chills honestly when I hear that sort of aspect to it. Company that pays, because like, you know, sometimes that gets to be misconstrued simply because and obviously all the attention is pointed to the sake of the kids and whoever has a challenge with whatever. And so the reason why I'm talking about this is because I want to just turn over what I was talking before about the character, and let other people in, as in that phenomenon, because you know, it's very, very interesting and exciting to see kids. I mean, we're talking about kids right now, to see them developing that way, as in making the relationships with everybody. Now, mind you, all the people in their lives are different. So whether you were a parent, mom or dad or uncle, aunt, whatever, whoever you are, okay, and you know, and so it's really, really significant that relationships they build with these people, and I say, I point out intentionally these people, because to them everybody's people at the beginning. They don't know who is who, because they're too small. So that's why they need affirmation. Uh, and so as they go along, as they grow, and I've seen this personally, uh, uh, um, it's unbelievable how they can surprise us, because one of the greatest knocking down things I saw from the adults is when they are in a situation of underestimating them, like, oh, what do kids know? I mean, and stories like that. Not to go into details, because I think once you start going on that path of underestimation, that's very dangerous ground to walk on. Because I think I think they know a lot more and they learn a lot more than we give them credit to. Especially in the world nowadays. And so that, again, that relationships they build with mom and dad and grandparents and teachers and doctors, and how that works. So sometimes it can be too much, and sometimes they need to have somebody to say them, it's okay. If you're scared, well, guess what? It's fine. You're confused. It's okay. We'll pass. Because they, as they grow from the young age, they believe everything. And why wouldn't they? I mean, they see something. How do they know what that is? Okay. No, talking about credibility and trust, right? Now, how easy it is for something to be broken in their life, and for them to have that as affirmation towards something strong. Try to give them something strong, for instance, for change. Okay, and if they see that, that's exactly the affirmation they're looking up to. How many people in their work, like, for example, how many people in the child service or any other institutions, respectfully, how many of them they think, okay, what is going to be the first thing they're going to think of when they wake up in the morning? Mind you, when they wake up in the morning, they're fresh, their mind is fresh. So each and every step they take, it pretty much determines and caves on their entire day. I think we have to be very brave and ambitious to support that system, and not to really go under any easy way outs. And I've read earlier, somebody wrote that coaching is transformational, by all means, but I think the greater question is whether it helps. Okay. So we can call it however, we can slap it any label. The question is, how does that kid feel when they focus their time and their energy and everything in that specific conversation? Whether they like it, whether they not like it, do they believe in that? How is their life going to be after that? So all these questions are sometimes too much, but again, that depends on ages. So I just wanted to point out that the character I was pointing out relates to that relationships building, right? And the reason why I'm pointing this out is because I feel we haven't had enough of that. That's my position. So yes, that's something that well, thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks very much, team. Thanks very much indeed. We're shortly running out of time. I just want to come back. Mark Clark has said, should we not be looking at different types of therapy if there's some serious issues? Absolutely, Mark. Absolutely. And that's perhaps a case that you actually got to say, this is beyond me, or this can be dealt with in a better way by other people, and actually do some signposting. And that's perhaps one of those areas where you do actually need to go to the parents and say, somebody else needs to be involved here. You don't necessarily have to breach much in the way of confidentiality in order to highlight that sort of situation. That is what has been recommended to me, and that's why I pass it on. Now, Noble Manhattan, we do have an adolescent and child coaching training program. If any of you are interested, what it does come with is a significant toolkit of what can effectively be life skills training for particular ages. In fact, it's age appropriate, dealing with sort of eight different topics. And while it's sold as a coaching program, it's actually a life skills development program, which comes back to what was said earlier, that is coaching actually supporting the life skill development of these children, and it's giving them an experience and opportunity to, yes, indeed, do just that. If anybody wishes to know more about that, then you've got my email address. Please give me a call and let's arrange a chat. I'm always happy to have chats with people because I love to meet them and to hear more about what they're actually doing. So unless there's any major pertinent points coming through, thank you very much indeed for all of your input today. I was just getting